I'm 82 years old now, and I've been thinking about a word I spent most of my life waiting for. Confidence. I used to believe it was something that arrived, like a letter, like a promotion, like gray hair. I thought one day I would wake up and feel ready, certain, sure of myself in a way I wasn't allowed to be as a young man. That day never came. You have a lot of time to notice things when your days get quiet. The phone doesn't ring as much. The house doesn't need you the way it used to. You sit with your memories, whether you want to or not. And lately, mine have been circling the same question. Why did I wait so long to live like I belonged in my own life? When I was in my 20s, I didn't think of myself as unsure. I thought of myself as responsible, careful, sensible. Those were the words people used, and I accepted them gladly. I had a job at a small accounting office. Nothing special, but it was steady. My boss liked me because I didn't argue. I did what was asked. I didn't take risks that might embarrass me. Back then, that felt like maturity. There was a woman I worked with. Her name was Lillian. She laughed loudly, spoke her mind, and once told me I apologized too much. I remember that because I laughed it off, then apologized for laughing. She invited me to a concert one Friday evening. I told her I wasn't really the type. That was my phrase. Not really the type. What I meant was, I didn't feel comfortable being seen. I didn't trust myself to exist without rehearsing it first. I told myself there would be other chances. When I felt more confident, when I was more established, when I knew what I was doing. You see how that sounds reasonable? It did to me. Years passed the way they do when you follow routine. Wake up, work, come home, eat, sleep. Weekends filled with errands and small obligations. I wasn't unhappy. That's the tricky part. Nothing felt wrong enough to change. Lillian transferred to another office. We shook hands in the hallway. I remember thinking I should say something more, something real. Instead, I wished her luck and told her she'd do great. Then she was gone. That wasn't a tragedy. It was just a moment, one of thousands. But life, I've learned, is mostly made of moments like that. Small doors closing softly while you're busy convincing yourself you'll open the next one. In my 30s, I married a kind woman named Elaine. She deserved a husband who spoke clearly about what he felt. Instead, she got a man who believed love was proven by working hard and staying out of trouble. I told myself confidence would come with success, so I focused on being dependable. I worked longer hours, took promotions I wasn't sure I wanted, said yes when I meant maybe, and maybe when I meant no. People praised me. That's another dangerous thing. They called me reliable, said I was the one they could count on. I wore that like a medal, even as parts of me went quiet from lack of use. Elaine would sometimes ask what I wanted to do on vacation. I'd say, whatever you'd like. She thought I was being generous. The truth was, I didn't trust my own preferences enough to name them. We had a son, Daniel. I loved him fiercely, but even with him, I kept waiting to become the kind of father who knew exactly what to say. I thought confidence meant having answers. So when he asked big questions, I gave small ones back. When he wanted to try things I didn't understand, I suggested safer options. When he needed encouragement, I offered caution dressed up as wisdom. I wasn't trying to hold him back. I was trying to protect him from the discomfort I never learned to tolerate myself. Time moves strangely when you're raising a child. The days are long, but the years vanish. One moment you're teaching him to tie his shoes, and the next you're standing in a driveway watching him load boxes into a car. I remember wanting to tell him I was proud of him, really tell him, not just the quick passing version. But I felt awkward. I thought I'd find a better moment, a more natural time, something less exposed. You begin to see a pattern, I imagine. I postponed the important things because I believed I needed to feel different before I did them. I thought confidence was the cause of action. I didn't understand it was usually the result. By my 40s, life looked stable from the outside. Good job, paid-off house, family photographs arranged neatly on the wall. If you had asked me then whether I was satisfied, I would have said yes without hesitation. But there was a quiet shrinking happening inside me. I stopped trying new things because I didn't want to be bad at them. I avoided conversations that might reveal I didn't know something. I stayed in roles that were familiar, even when they no longer fit. It wasn't fear in the dramatic sense. No racing heart, no sleepless nights. Just a steady habit of staying where I already understood the rules. Elaine noticed before I did. One evening she said, "You don't seem excited about anything anymore." I told her that's just what getting older feels like. She nodded, but she didn't look convinced. I wish I had asked her what she meant. I wish I had been curious instead of defensive. But curiosity requires a certain willingness to not know who you are for a moment. I avoided that. The turning point, if you can call it that, didn't arrive with thunder. It came in a hospital room that smelled faintly of disinfectant and coffee. Elaine got sick in her early 60s. It wasn't sudden. There were tests, appointments, words we had to ask doctors to repeat because we weren't ready to hear them the first time. Serious illness has a way of stripping away the idea that you'll handle things later. One afternoon while she was resting, she looked at me and said, "You know, you don't have to wait to be comfortable to do something. You never did." I asked her what she meant. She smiled, but there was sadness in it. "You've been waiting your whole life to feel ready, but ready isn't something that shows up. You have to walk into things before you feel it." I didn't respond. Not because I disagreed, because I suddenly knew she was right, and I didn't know what to do with that. After she passed, the house became very large. Grief is part missing someone, part seeing all the ways you held back while they were still there. I found notes she had written, grocery lists, reminders, little scraps of ordinary life. And I realized how often she had stepped forward while I stood still, thinking I was being careful. There are things you can apologize for, even after someone is gone. You say them into empty rooms. You say them while washing dishes. You say them when you sit down in a chair and there's no one across from you anymore. But apologies don't travel very far once time is closed. In the years since, I've tried things I once avoided. I joined a local class to learn woodworking. The first day, my hands shook using tools I had never touched before. Not from age, from unfamiliarity, from the old feeling of not knowing. And something surprising happened. No one cared. The other people in that room were also learning, also unsure, also imperfect. We made crooked shelves and laughed about it. That was when I began to understand what I had misunderstood all along. Confidence wasn't a prerequisite. It was a side effect of showing up repeatedly while feeling unsure. All those decades I spent waiting to feel different, I could have been practicing speaking honestly, practicing trying, practicing being seen without preparation. You don't get those years back once you see it clearly. That's the part no one can fix. I can't go back and accept Lillian's invitation. I can't redo conversations with my son when he was small enough to look up at me as if I knew everything. I can't sit across from Elaine and tell her what I eventually learned. Time is very fair that way. It gives, and then it doesn't. Now when people meet me, they sometimes say I seem calm, comfortable. They assume age did that. That wisdom arrived naturally. I don't correct them. But inside, I know the truth is less graceful. I'm not finally confident because I aged into it. I'm just no longer willing to postpone the small risks that make a day feel lived. At this point, there isn't much left to protect. That can be a kind of freedom, but it's a freedom that would have meant more earlier. If you're listening to this, I'm not here to tell you what you should do. Life doesn't need another lecture. I can only tell you what I misunderstood. I thought hesitation was a sign of thoughtfulness. I thought waiting would make me better prepared. I thought certainty was something earned before participation. It turns out most of life allows you to enter as you are, unprepared, a little unsure, sometimes very unsure. And the feeling you were waiting for begins to grow only after you've already started. It's a strange realization to come to in your 80s. Useful, true, and far too late to apply where I wish I could. These days I take slow walks in the morning. I talk to neighbors instead of nodding politely and moving on. I say what I mean more often, even if it comes out uneven. Nothing dramatic, just small acts of not holding back. I don't know how many years I have left. At my age, you stop measuring time in decades. You start being grateful for seasons. There's a chair by the window where I sit most evenings. The light changes on the wall. The world carries on outside without asking whether I feel ready for it. I used to think readiness was required. Now I see that living was always the requirement. Readiness was something I invented so I could delay. If any of this sounds familiar to you, that's enough. You don't owe me agreement. Just consider it the way you might consider an old photograph someone hands you. If it means something, you'll know. And if it doesn't, that's all right too. As for me, I'm still practicing, even now. Not because I expect to master anything, just because, after all these years, I finally understand that showing up while uncertain was the whole point all along.